welcome back. It's Janelle from Infinite Potential Healing, and today I wanted to talk to you about a tip and trick based on one of the questions I get asked most often in my practice, and that is, Janelle, how in the fuck do I know the difference between my ego and my intuition? Great question. I'm gonna tell you. So first we have to talk about ego. We have to kind of get to know ego and what ego is and how ego is meant to function. So back in the day, and I'm talking all the way back to when we first existed on the planet, ego was a necessary tool because pretty much everything out there either would or could and was possibly actively trying to kill us. If you think about it, we did not have climate controlled shelters. We really barely even had shelters. There's a reason, accurate or not, that we refer to the caveman days, right? You know, there were animals that were trying to eat us. And no, I am not trying to get into a debate about when dinosaurs and humans did or didn't coexist on the planet, but there were other animals that were actively trying to eat us. There were fruits and other foliage that we might have been intending to consume that was poisonous. We did not have Google. We did not have ChatGPT. We didn't even have somebody that had come before us to say, hey, dumbass, don't eat that because it's gonna fucking kill you. So our ego had to get our attention, and it did that by basically screaming at us. Our ego was meant to be loud and proud, and it was meant to do that in such a way to basically scream at us, hey, that's not safe, you're gonna die. So that was a very helpful tool, and obviously we lived, we grew, we evolved, and now the reality is, despite what some of us may think, there's very little that is actively trying to kill us on a regular basis. Doesn't mean there's not potential for things to kill us or that things aren't slowly killing us, but those are other videos for other times, or not. It just means that, you know, I'm sitting here talking to you through the internet in a climate controlled house. Nothing is actually gunning for me that I'm aware of at this specific moment. I'm not going to step outside my front door. Nothing's going to eat me on any given day that I am aware of. So, and this is true for all of us. So we've had this massive societal evolution, cultural evolution even, and that has made us inherently safer in many, many ways. We're not going to discuss the ways that we are unsafe in society again. Other video, other time, or not. The problem is our ego has not kept pace with the evolution of our personal selves, our surroundings, our culture, our society, the way in which we live. So the second that our ego senses any sort of potential threat, it is still hardwired within our bodies and our minds and our emotions to scream at us, you're not safe, you're gonna die. And the reality is that very few things our ego, if anything, very few things that our ego is addressing at this point is actually unsafe or is something that we could die from. So we're having these visceral, ego-driven reactions to making a phone call, going on a job interview, sometimes driving on the expressway, or whatever it is that our ego is screaming at us, you're not safe, you're gonna die. What it's really trying to tell us is, hey, I'm not comfortable here and I'm trying to keep you safe. We do need ego to keep us safe. It is a valuable tool, but we need to learn to work with ego to kind of shush ego or quiet ego in those moments where it's being too loud and overbearing, and really actively choose to redefine our relationship with ego. Then our intuition comes in, which ideally is the compass and the guide that we use to navigate our everyday life. So our intuition is kind of the whisper to ego's scream. Our intuition is usually quiet and gentle and warm, sometimes assertive, sometimes direct, sometimes pushy, particularly if it has to repeat itself because we haven't been listening. But one of the easiest ways for us to figure out, is it intuition or is it ego, is simply the compass of how do you feel or how did you feel when you received that message. if you received a message and you didn't know, was it intuition or was it ego? And another way to say this is, was it spirit or was it your own thinking cerebral mind? Then if you had the type of reaction where you felt threatened or scared or sad or, you know, worried in any way, or you had any sort of negative reaction, it was your thinker or it was your ego, guaranteed. Messages from spirit, messages from our intuition, which are two sides of the same coin at the end of the day, are always going to feel gentle, nurturing, reassuring, comfortable, even when the message itself is maybe not something that we really want to hear. So even if the message itself is, nope, that thing you really wanted isn't going to happen for you, because something even better likely is, we might feel kind of a little bit sad that, like, okay, it's not going to go down the way that I hoped it would be, but at the same time, there's a comfort in knowing. That is an intuitive message. Where if we get a message and we're sitting there going, oh my God, is this actually happening? And we're in this kind of frenetic, doubting energy or even worried energy, that is an ego energy. So that's one quick, easy way that we can start to differentiate. But we still have to actively work to get our ego to calm its fucking tits, or it's going to drive us crazy and make us miserable and leave us in a constant state of doubt and worry and fear, rather than being in a state of flow and a state of surrender, which is very helpful and necessary to getting accurate intuitive messages and accurate messages from spirit. So one of the ways that we can do that is to start to call our ego out when it starts barking at us. So when we have a thought, or when we get a message, or when we want to do something and our ego decides to scream at us, you're not safe, you're going to die, in whatever verbiage it takes, because it's usually not literally that verbiage. Usually it's just the, oh, that's not going to work out for you. Oh, that's not right. Oh, you're going to fail. Our ego, unfortunately, kind of a pessimistic jackass at the end of the day. But again, it's to keep us safe. So when we get those messages from ego, what we need to do is be aware, be mindful of our inner dialogue and catch it, and then correct it. The easiest way to do that is to say out loud, so that we're exercising our throat chakras, no ego, that's not true. No ego, that's a lie. Sometimes it can be helpful too when you tell ego that something isn't true or that something is a lie, to tell ego what is true and what is accurate, because then it does kind of take a backseat. It does calm down. So if your ego is larger than life right now, if your ego is running your person, is running the proverbial show, then definitely work with ego and tell it when it gets it wrong, which is probably more often than not. It's always a good idea to look at the evidence, look for the evidence, look towards the evidence. And again, the evidence is that nothing is actively trying to kill us. It is unlikely that we are going to die right now, right this second, today. It is very unlikely that we're even truly unsafe, because our ego needs to learn the difference between unsafe and uncomfortable. And sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable, especially when spirit has told us to essentially face the fear and do it anyway. That is the safe move. That is the guided move. That is the inspired move. That is the directed move. But ego is going to be over here going, you're not safe, you're going to die. And we've got to tell ego, basically, shut the fuck up. So do what you can, work with ego. It can also be helpful to kind of personify your ego. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to talk to it out loud anyway, which spirit is recommending, to tame it, what does ego look like to you, for you? How does ego dress? How big is ego? What tone and tenor is ego's voice? see if you can, not necessarily give ego a separate name, because it is a part of you and it is a necessary part of you. But if you can personify that barky, bitchy part that keeps you playing small, then you can start to shrink ego down. Ideally, you want ego to be about yay high so that you can simply tuck him behind your ear so that he is there, or she. I am not trying to gender identify your ego for you. Don't come for me. You want to tuck ego behind your ear so that it's there when you may need it, but it's not constantly interfering and keeping you in a state of doubt about your own intuition. The other thing that's important to note about intuition is if you think that you have gotten an intuitive message, you probably have. Whatever your first thought, your first reaction, and I'm not talking about the thought and the reaction after you've sat with it and dissected it and run a pros and cons list and an analysis on it. I'm talking about that instant, first, off the jump, off the cuff thought, your instant visceral reaction. Whatever that is probably the truth of the situation 9.97 out of 10 times. So give yourself credit. You are a child of the divine. You are protected. You are connected. And you can tame your ego because your intuition is meant to be the compass for your life.